what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you're new to this channel, or you have not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they're live, but there's also a PayPal link in the info box below the video once the video has rendered. Most importantly though, if you would like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show. Sharing the show increases the live audience, of course, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now, we are joined by Zoe, The Plain Truth, Sleeping Warrior, Ranty Flat Earth, and Chocolate Saying. How the devil are you all?
Excellent.
All good, all good.
Check the live stream's actually working. It's been I don't know, 45 minutes of figuring out why the hell it doesn't work. Ah, yes, we've got a live stream. Hooray! Technical issue over. Don't know what happened there, but obviously I figured it out. By fair means or foul. Excellent. Please share the show, as there's probably been no notifications gone out with the amount of hangouts I've just set up, so please share if you're in the audience. I really would appreciate it.
Whilst in between the two shows, I've been back and forth with somebody on Red Pill Philosophy's video that he did recently, and the claim is that Red Pill Philosophy in some way has lied and tried to deceive people with the experiment he did. So I said, okay. I said, you tell me exactly what the lie is and where the intention to deceive is, and I'll replicate it and I'll validate it and I'll check his work to see whether or not I agree, whether or not there is a lie there. And obviously it relies on a false statement of fact. So he gave me a timestamp and he said, right, that's where it is. This is what you're looking for. So I went into it. I watched it twice to make sure I understood the point that he was trying to claim was a lie. So I set off to go and repeat the experiment myself. And my preliminary thought is that Red Pill Philosophy has not been. He's not even wrong. It's not that he's lied. He's not even wrong. He appears to be correct. But whilst I was trying to do this, the guy that I'm challenging or trying to work with to establish whether or not there was a lie has flipped it from Red Pill Philosophy was lying to, but on the flat Earth, this is the position. And I'm like, hang on a sec, I'm not doing a flat Earth position. I'm doing whether or not Red Pill Philosophy's lied. So it seems that he's moving the goalpost while I'm working with him. So that seems to be a little bit of sleight of hand, which I'm keeping him on topic. But what I have noticed whilst I'm doing this experiment is that when we do an observation over any distance, everything converges to a point, which is the horizon. Whether it's a flat plane or whether it's a ball, everything goes to a point. Like on screen right now, you've got the lighthouse, you've got the horizon. Everything below you goes up to the horizon. Everything above you goes down to the horizon. So you do have that convergence point. But what I noticed when Red Pill Philosophy did his video, he didn't allow for that meeting of corners. Everything goes to a point. He did it open-ended, as though it was like, as though things never converge to a point. And that, I don't think he's done it as a mistake or an error, but it dawned on me that, well, everything goes up to the horizon and everything goes down to the horizon, depending on your line of sight. And at the end of the day, that's not been considered in the experiment that he did, because he hasn't put everything converging at a point. He's done it orthographically. Even though he said he was considering perspective, it appears that he might have considered part of perspective, but omitted the part where everything converges to a point. So I'm just trying to work out how I can replicate it subject to perspective with everything converging at a point, yet still satisfy the test with the claim, which is that perspective is a thing. So I'm not quite there yet. I'm gonna have to have a bit of a discussion with some people, but I'm trying to validate, replicate, and what's the word? Validate, yeah, validate and replicate his work to show that it's credible. but I've realised that there is something at the horizon that's not been considered, and I don't know how to consider it, because the minute I consider it by aiming the camera to the edge of the table, representing the vanishing point, they're going to say, yeah, but you've angled your camera down, Riley. And that is the claim. On their model, the camera does aim down. So I'm not sure that it would be bad, but I'm going to have an off-air conversation with some people and see whether or not I have to do this, or whether or not I should let it go, or what. But I'm trying to work on it.
He's in the chat right now. So, I mean,
well, while you negotiate with him in the chat, Anthony, I don't know if Ranty's willing to do his presentation from this morning again, just so it's on this show.
Yeah, sure. No, what I was going to say, Anthony, is that no indoor experiment or modeling out on 3ds Max or anything like that is going to replicate the optical effects that are in play in the real world. It's just not going to happen. So it might look that you can just line some bottles up and look down the line of them, but that isn't going to also include the atmospherics that's going on. Right. Something that we're actually figuring out now is that at the convergence point, that's where everything seems to get all crumpled up, so to speak. And yeah, I mean, I'm happy to do a very quick presentation again, Nath, if you want.
Yeah, cool.
Just give you the floor for 5 minutes.
Brilliant. Yeah, tell me when you're ready and I'll stick you up. So, yeah, you're ready straight away. Great.
Hang on, let me get up what I need in the right order. Right, so we need that one, and we need this one.
Ranty's doing that, he's been back to Barrow Inverness and caught a second observation, and you're about to see two observations, one that's on the top of the wall at 30 feet and one that's from ground level about 1 feet above the water. So I think Ranty's ready now. You ready?
I am, yeah.
So take it away, Ranty. So, Mike's all yours.
So following on from yesterday's results, which was the compression of the lower part of the boat from an observation of 1/2 foot on the top image to an observation of 40 feet of the bottom image. Essentially, the top of the boat on both images is proportionally the same. I've cropped out the top part of this boat here, placed it here, and you can see that they are relatively the same. The difference is very clear on the bottom of the boat, where you see the orange line clearly underneath the stena line, showing that we are seeing down to the hull. However, the size of the writing is only approximately 30% of what the height should be. So we're getting all this compression going on. And when you get out of that compression zone, everything seems to just look the same. So this is following on from yesterday's observation. I basically went to 20.4 miles away. Perhaps I should show you on Google Earth. Would that be worthwhile doing?
Yeah, definitely. Why not? Yeah.
Okay. So I'll show you on Google Earth where I was, because we had Ron Burgundy in the chat before who was saying that I had said that I was at Ankersholm Slipway, which was completely fallacious and wrong. If you go back to within the first couple of minutes of the video, I specifically say I've moved 2 miles, 2.5 miles further down the coast. So this was my exact location. We have a street here called St. George's Avenue, which is here. I parked my car up along there, walked down this windy stretch here, put my tripod and everything down on these steps in this location here. So filming across to Barrow Inverness again, we're looking at these buildings way over here, and the distances involved our 20.4 miles. So let's get the properties on that. So measurement 20.4 miles. So that's to this one here with the highlighted on the building, 20.4 miles distance. Right, so now that we've established where I was, I can prove all this with the GPS and stuff on the camera. But I have two images, one from a higher observation, which is up here, and the next one, which is from a lower observation at 1 foot. Now, I'm going to play the video at 1 foot. Essentially, you'll see this sort of compressed view of those buildings in Barrow Inverness. So let me play the video. here I was down at the bottom of the steps. I'm just going to scroll through just so that you see. There's Gin Square. There's North Pier. What I do then is I show you. Do I show you the camera? No, don't show you the camera right now. I think I do in a minute though. I lower the camera down anyway, right down to a foot. It's on a camera tripod that's 13 inches. I bury it into the sand so the camera's about 1 foot above sea level, and then I zoom in from 20.4 miles away. And obviously this is a video, so the clarity isn't quite as good as the image that you've just seen, but you will see the same buildings once I get it in line and focused. So just bear with me. There we go. We can see the buildings over here now to the left. So let me just pause it anywhere around here. So if I pause it there you can see all the buildings, just as I've said. I think I pull back and show you the camera. I think I unscrew the camera off the tripod. So I zoom back out. This is just to show you that I was actually at 1 foot. I think I tilt the camera and I have to take it off the tripod from underneath. Let me just turning the camera up to look up. So just bear with me. So I've got the camera off the tripod now, and I'm showing you where the tripod was. So there's the incoming tide, 1 foot. So we have 2 observations. That's from 1 foot. And so that will be this image. And then the higher image from 30 feet was done on another video. I could perhaps show that if you want. Would you like me to show that one too?
Yeah, why not?
So that was, it would be this one, I believe. No, maybe not. This is from later on in the day. Sorry, I had some other images that were from later on in the day. 27th of June, so let me get it from lower. 72. Is that it? But it wasn't. Not even playing. You see it, Nathan? Are you seeing this circle on my cursor?
Yeah.
Right, because whatever's happening, my PC is struggling to
Blowing down, just
show any videos at the minute. Right. Anyway, so 2 observations, 2 in exactly the same line. What I've done is I've opened them up in Paint, and all I've done is I've straightened them out. You can see there's a little corner piece there because they weren't quite straight. So I've just straightened them out because when you're taking those images, it's, you know, you're holding it freestyle and you're trying to take the image. You just need to level it out. So we've got the 2 images, and what we're going to do now is look at the curve calcs. This is the important part. This is where they hide all the curvature of the Earth. So when we've got a distance of 20.4 miles here, and we have an elevation of 1 foot, the hidden is 245 feet, right? So on this image here, the low one, hidden should be 245 feet. Now, bear in mind that the top of these chimneys here are 238 feet. So all of this should be gone.
I've just got to interrupt you there, and I've already pre-warned Ranty that I'll be saying this when I interrupt him. So when he says all of this should be hidden, it is according to the begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective omitting curve calculators. So we are dealing here with absolute values. So when he says that's the case, it's not the case based on their model. There should be considerably more obstruction because of perspective and the bulge. But what Ranty's demonstrating to you is that in the calculations, it appears to match what we visually see when we do it in absolute numbers based on what he's about to show you. So this phraseology of this is how much should be hidden is only the case based on what the calculator currently spits out. We're not in any way endorsing the calculations at all.
No, I'm using it to gather a percentage. I'll show you in a second what I mean by that. The percentage.
What is the blockage though? Isn't the blockage the bulge?
Oh, we're getting there. We're getting there. You've not seen this yet, so.
So here we have the higher observation. So this was from an elevation of 30 feet. I did actually go and measure it with and threw a tape over the edge, but unfortunately, as you just saw that pop up, my system seems to be messing up, so I won't be able to play the video of that, although I can upload it onto my channel later if it so wishes. But this is from an elevation of 30 feet. Now, when we went into the curve calcs again and we put a 30 feet elevation in, look what happens. We drop to the hidden of 125. right? So essentially that's almost half. Now, what I'm going to do is show you on here. 1 foot elevation, 20.4 miles, 245 foot hidden. 30 foot elevation, 20.4 miles, 125 feet hidden. So it's almost double. So in order to compress the top image down, not width, just straight down, we need to reduce it in height by 49%, right? We need to compress it. So this is what I'm going to do now. So following on from what we worked out yesterday with, it's not sure, why is it? It's crashed there anyway, hasn't it? Anyway, so following on from yesterday boat observation. So what we're going to do is we're going to crop out this now. This is the top image. I'm going to crop it out. And we're going to try it. We're going to decrease it by 49%, right? So image crop to selection. I need to resize it now because I've already done the workings on this. It's 227, right? And then we need to, well, what did I just do then? Cropped it out, thinking. So now I need to reduce it by 49%. So image, resize. So I need to figure out the 49% of 726. So just get the calculator up. 726 divided by 100, no, times by 49. So 355. So I need to alter it. Don't do the aspect ratio. Change that to 355 so it compresses it in height, same as the boats yesterday. And now we have a compressed image from the top. So if I copy that.
While you're doing that, I'll summarize again. So what we've got at the moment in front of you, what Ranty has just cropped, is the higher elevation 30 feet observation, which has got 230 feet or whatever it says in the calculator missing. He's then reduced it by squashing it approximately 50%. So it's then half the height by virtue of squashing it. And now he's going to compare to the lower observation, which is what's on screen now.
So now, when I compare the two and I place them over the top of each other, what do you know? If I was to say that's an almost identical match, apart from the chimney on this lower part being slightly higher, but that is evidenced again with the boats from yesterday. They were out of the refraction zone, so they maintained their actual height. All the imagery that's captured in that very small, narrow band seems to get compressed. And if this is just, I've just reduced it by the curve calcs, basically. The curve calc percentage, which would have been 49% difference. I've just essentially changed the top image and reduced it by 49%, and it absolutely matches up the 1 foot observation. So if I crop this out now,
it appears to me that the difference between the two observations there is simply the effects of refraction. You know, that negligible effect of refraction, that appears to be what we're looking at.
Well, this is, you've just seen me workings out. I've taken two images from the same location in a direct line with each other, so that I was over the lower observation point when I took the image. 30 feet versus 1 foot. I've reduced it by the curve calc percentage, you know, 245 feet hidden as opposed to 125, which is 49% difference. I've then reduced that by 49%, the top image, squashed it, reduced it in size. And what do you know? It absolutely, it's a spitting image. It's identical to the lower image. Now that cannot be
well, the conclusion is that as things become more acute, as the angle gets smaller, as you look towards the horizon, when it reaches that very, very acute tight angle, it will compress whatever's in that zone. Now, if you've got, like Ranty says, if you can just circle them, the chimneys, they are tall enough to sit outside slightly of that zone where you've got a very acute angle. You've got a wider viewing angle on the top of them than you do on the bottom. But as Ranty drops from 30 feet to a foot, it's lowering that angle even further and compressing it even more. So we're ending up with it literally squashed by a factor of, you know, it's 50% more squashed, so, or 49%. And so when you compare the two, obviously the top one's clearer, but ultimately in terms of the proportionality, they're the same, absolutely identical. Whereas if we had some spray, because this is a mill pond again. You know, Ranty's caught it on a day that's absolutely clear as crystal in terms of how much obstruction there isn't from splashing waves. But if there was, and I'm hoping Ranty will then go on to his next video with the boats, you'll see what happens in terms of obstruction, which can basically obscure things in the distance if you have anything intersecting the midpoint, the convergence line in the foreground, no matter how small. So I'm going to take you off screen a second, Ranty, just while you cue that up. Do you know which video I'm talking about?
I do. It's whether or not my computer will play it, because as you just saw, I got an error message on it. So let me just see if I can play any kind of video.
The other thing to do is to cross-reference the claim by the ballers that the observer height is really important, because it affects it creates a seesaw effect with the bulge. So as you get lower, the bulge is supposed to reduce how much you actually see, and that's why I've always said the observer height doesn't appear to make any difference. We still seem to see the same amount. It's just distorted, but it's still the same stuff we're seeing. We're not seeing any obstruction. We should be seeing obstruction.
Sure, yeah, I'm ready to play, Nath. If you want to,
yeah, if you want to play it through first, and we won't have much commentary, and then we'll go back and point out some key features. I mean, one of them's on screen now and obvious. In fact, both of them.
Yeah, where's that bulge?
You can also see that the lower part of the boat is being compressed at the same height as the buildings behind it. Yet the boat itself, the part of the boat that's out of that refraction zone, just about the height of the chimney, the top part of the chimney, is keeping its aspect ratio and not changing at all.
So flat Earth math must be right then. There is no bulge between us and the observer, the target. We need to mark that down as a concession, Nathan.
Say that again, sorry.
Flat Earth math. He said yesterday there doesn't appear to be a bulge in this image. We need to mark that down as a concession.
So do you want to talk about what we've just seen, Nath?
Well, I'm hoping you'll lead, just because my kid's making quite a lot of banging at the moment, so if you can start off.
Okay, things in the foreground block out things in the background. Now, the height of the buildings behind are 167 feet. The boat in the foreground, to the very, very top of that, the very, very top of it is 120 foot, to the very, very, very top. So things in the foreground are making things that are further away in the background that are larger disappear through not being able to penetrate the thing in the foreground. The thing in the foreground is blocking out everything in the background. Also, there is no hump.
I'll see if I can do it in between. Maybe not. I'm not going to be able to get a chance to detail this, and I'm really keen to.
Well, essentially what we're showing is that from this observation point here, the low point at 1 foot, we are seeing all of the buildings. Now, we could reverse engineer the this image here. So this is the image that we just worked through. You saw me doing it with the two images taken from two different elevations. Now, if we reverse engineered it, we could say essentially we are seeing to the floor, because if the top image squashes and compresses the same to match the bottom, then yeah, and yet the top image is clearly seeing floor to floor, then we are seeing floor to floor from 1 foot observation 20.4 miles away. This is what it's demonstrating. Demonstrating that compression is, as well as the angular change at distance, is making a massive difference to what we see in the real world. Now, you won't get this compression on a table or an indoor room or a warehouse floor. You're just not going to get that. Trying to simulate this kind of optical effect is nearly impossible inside or on a 3ds Max or a computer program, whichever you choose to use. So all of the people using straight lines and this, that, and the other, and saying you should be able to see to the other side of the world if it's flat, are talking nonsense, because we have things in play like compression, like reduction of angular size reduction at distance, and atmosphere. Anthony, have you got anything to say? What do you think? This is the first time you've seen this.
I think that the ballers will deny it no matter what. I don't think that you can explain it to a baller. They'll just dismiss it, and they'll have no reason to dismiss it other than pure denial. And basically, that uncomfortable feeling that they have before they dismiss it is what's known as cognitive dissonance. You cannot accept that there is no bulge, there is no drop, there is no hidden. We just see shit because it's there. There is no mirage. There is nothing. That curve calculator is a load of rubbish. The horizon is meant to be 1 point something miles away. No, isn't it less than a mile away at the height you're at? So the horizon is only 1 mile away.
1.22 miles away. To the
right. So 1.22 miles away is where things start dropping away. There is no horizon here with things dropping away behind it. For the rest of that duration of the 18-mile or 20-mile observation, yeah, it's 18 miles or so.
20.4.
Yeah, I know, but the horizon's 1.2 miles away.
Mm-hmm.
So 20.4.
19 point.
So for the 19 point something miles of distance that we're seeing in the picture, there's supposed to be a hidden value. There's supposed to be a drop value. And clearly you're not seeing it because all of them buildings should be gone.
But look at if we look at everything underneath the chimney and we take it portion by portion, we have a bit of white here under the chimney, bit of white. We have this very distinct, it goes into a point, this darker part here, and again it goes into a point when we come across. These are the same size, the buildings, everything's the same. We have this white line going across, white line going across. Matching, 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 matching. Everything's matching. There's nothing not matching with this. Even to the point of the little light here, it's just everything. It's identical in every way, shape, or form. And the only way I was able to work out the formula was reducing it by the curve count percentage, 245 versus 125, meaning that if I reduced the top image by 49% and compressed it down, keeping its width, this was the result. This was the result. There's no forgery. There's no trickery going on. The only trickery that's going on is what's been happening in the curve calcs.
Okay, so if you can you pop your video back up? Hopefully I've got enough quiet time, enough calm child time. Okay, so can you tell us about the boat and its general sizes, Ranty?
Yeah, I might have an image for that actually. Just let me see if I can find it.
Yeah, so the buildings in the background are what are the rough height roughly? Are they about 150 feet?
What, the buildings in the background?
Yeah.
167 feet.
So just say 150 feet. And how big's that ferry, roughly?
Well, I did have it all worked out, Nathan. I don't know where I've put it. It's 120 feet to the very, very top of it.
So they're about the same size, roughly. I know it's a little bit smaller, but they're about the same size, right?
Anthony, hold on. Just if you can just bring up the picture and Ranty.
I'm trying to. I can't find it. I did all the work on it before, and my computer's messed up.
I know we've gone through this all day. It's okay.
We're all having it. We're having technical issues today.
Is it not on Paint? Is it not still open on Paint?
No, it's long gone. No. I'll have to look for it again in a couple of minutes and maybe redo it. But essentially, we worked out the draft, we worked out the height of the boat, and we know that to the very top, it's 120 feet. So the top of that mast at the very top is 120 feet. Where that buoy is the 90 feet high. Sorry, Nathan, help me out. 70 feet.
70 feet.
70 feet. Yeah, so that's where the height of the bulge should be.
No, sorry, let's just get it right. I can't actually remember the figures. So the top of the lifeboat is 65 feet. So what we basically said was if you want to call the... Ranty, can you just put it back on screen?
Sorry. Get the...
It's just got to... Can you move your mouse? So it's just... There we go. It's not playing. Can you just get it to play?
Yeah, sure, sorry.
Okay, so if you look at the top line of the front of the boat, we're saying that is approximately the same height at half the distance, or maybe a bit under, a third of the distance between you and the target. You have this boat, which is about, as I say, the size of the bulge. So in the curve calculator, they've got a bulge at 70 feet at this distance. Is that correct, Ranty, off the top of your head?
It is. Yeah, I've just had it up just then.
So if you can pause it there a second. Just pause it a second. So you can see the front tip of the boat. If you want to draw a line along approximately here-ish, that's about how high the bulge should be. Now, when you're dealing in absolute values, they tell you that, like I say, 100 feet, whatever is missing, is hidden. But in reality, perspective would mean that a 70-foot bulge, and this is a third of the way along, not at the distance to horizon they give you in the calculator, but you can see how much proportionately bigger it is than the 150 foot. Or no, these buildings aren't, are they? These are about 100 foot. Is that right?
No, they're all about 140. The big ones are 167.
Okay.
The Devonshire.org.
Gotcha. So you can see that they are a fraction of the size of the boat. And if there was a bulge and it was a third of the way along between here and the target, that's how big the bulge would physically be to your perspective. Now, in their model, the bulge is the horizon. They're one and the same thing, as much as they want to argue. If you want to call it a tangent line that runs level with the same, in other words, they're the same height from your position, then ultimately they're the same height. Therefore, if the bulge begins at the ultimate height of it, even if the actual bulge you're calling halfway along is the horizon, then that is where the bulge begins, and that is the crest of the bulge. There's no other way to have it. They are all the same thing. The bulge, the horizon, they're one and the same. It's the thing causing the obstruction in their model. Now, obviously, what we're seeing here is perfectly flat water shore to shore, and the boat is representative of what a bulge would be if it was a third of the way between us and the target. And you can see it swamps the buildings absolutely massively. But when you take it in absolute values, you'd say, well, no, it doesn't quite work like that. The bulge is hiding X amount because you can put it in side profile and ignore perspective. But that's a very real issue. Now, if you rewind, Ranty, we've also got this... here we go. So maybe you can take over for a sec, Ranty.
So we've got the 30-foot wall in the foreground, which is so much bigger in comparison to the boat, even though the absolute sizes aren't the same. The boat is bigger, but relatively speaking, due to perspective, this wall, this 30-foot wall, is far greater in size than the boat. It's nearer, it's smaller, but it's bigger. This boat is nearer, it's smaller, but it's bigger than the buildings behind. I don't understand why the globelings refuse to acknowledge this very real and very observable phenomenon. You can put your thumb in front of your eye and you can block out the moon. It's as simple as that.
Well, my point, moreover, is that the bulge that they say is supposed to be in the near foreground has a massive effect on how much is being hidden. So, effectively, by having a bulge in their model, you've got a brick wall, like now with this boat, between you and the target, completely obscuring your view. You know, we can talk about slightly looming non-standard refraction all day, but what it essentially means is something that you cannot see because a wall is in the way in their model, and that wall is the horizon, which, as you can see, meets the bottom of the land for these compressed buildings. So the bulge is a massive problem, especially when you actually factor in perspective, which currently they do not in the proof of nothing begging the question perspective omitting curve calculator. But yes, so this wall in the foreground isn't big. You know, yes, it's only a few hundred feet away, but it gives you an idea of proportionality when you can see the boat as he zooms back in, coming into view. And again, when you scale it with zoom, you can still see that proportionately the boat is absolutely stonking enormous by comparison to the things, you know, 2/3 further into the distance. It swamps them completely, as the bulge should do if there was a bulge. But there is no bulge. There never is. There's never going to be a wall of anything between you and a clear target, given atmosphere and wave conditions that allow you to see. And you can probably tell from this image, it's like a mill pond. There's hardly anything there. However, there's still splash, there's still stuff interfering, there's little droplets of water that are flying up into the atmosphere, causing it to be more opaque. And again, I don't know if you want to now go to that particular little section, Ranty, if you can remember where it is precisely.
The splash?
The splash, yes.
Right, okay. Okay, so I moved down the promenade ever so slightly on that one. So let me find it. 27th of June. Days. Let's move in. Let's just see. That's not that video.
Germany are going home. Yay!
So yeah, here I've come back to my normal place. I'm showing you the tripod. I'm going to put it onto the camera. Sorry, the camera onto the tripod, and at some point there will be a fair few splashes that come up. You took some screenshots, didn't you, Nath?
I did, but ideally we will just be able to pause it on the video and show it in real time, or, you know, as live, so to speak, because it's playing in real time, right?
Yeah. I know all this splashing is on my camera already. But I think I'm going to need a new P900 by the looks of it.
Super jet for Ranty.
Unlucky Germany.
Hold on, Anthony.
Go on to the next. It's on the next video. Sorry.
Yes, be patient, because there is something. Here we go.
There we go.
Right, if you can just rewind it, and hopefully we can catch you still, and then we'll talk about this for a bit. Perfect. You go ahead, Ranty. You start.
Okay, so right where my cursor is now, in the very, very far distance, is the buildings of Barrow. Now, we know that we are seeing them all today. They're being very gracious in letting us see them all. So essentially, we're seeing 100 and plus feet of these buildings. But yet, the splash in the foreground, this splash, this bit of sea, this bit of raindrop, whatever you choose to call it, sea drop, it's larger than the buildings in the background. So hopefully I might be able to catch it on a particular frame where it blocks out the buildings. I know Nathan was able to capture it before. But as you can see, I mean, there was one there. Look at the size of this one. This is just a splash in the foreground is enough to block out 5 times the height of those buildings in the distance.
Unless you ignore perspective, then its actual size is all you would take into consideration, and you'd say, well, that splash droplet is only 1 millimeter across. It absolutely cannot obscure it. If you put this in our orthographic view, that's not going to block your view, right? It's 1 millimeter actual size. So, yeah, of course it can't block the view. Well, what happens here? Tiny splash in the foreground on a mill pond-like day. It's not like we've got massive waves splashing up in front of us, but they would, if we did have big waves, intersect the convergence point, blocking off stuff from the bottom up.
So yeah, I mean, they can deny and they can obfuscate all they want, but things in the foreground do block out things in the background. There's no two ways about that.
Yeah, perspective must be accounted for, because a droplet of water in orthographic view is never going to block your view. A droplet of water in perspective view can block your entire vision.
There's no way back. I think what's happened is basically in all that time that we've had that curve calculator, we've always been told, look at the refracted hidden, look at the refracted hidden, look over here, look over, don't look over there. But when we started looking around the curve calculator, it appears that the curve calculator is useless because it only does it orthographically. It only does it with absolute terms. And ultimately, our ball is going to explain that a raindrop or a splash drop can block out the buildings in the background if orthography is the correct way to do it. Clearly, it's not, because orthography doesn't reflect the reality of the world in which we live.
Okay, we've got one last point on this, and then we're going to go on to something else. So, okay, so in the foreground, you've got these posts that you can probably see as Ranty pans across, and one of them's about 3 foot high. You'll get to it in a moment. These are about 1 foot high, the ones on the right, and then the ones on the left any second now. Here we go. This is about 3 foot, correct, Ranty?
Yep.
And about 1 foot of it is essentially higher than your vision. You can probably see as he pans out. Unfortunately, Ranty's panned out just at the inopportune moment as it goes behind it. But ultimately speaking, you've got something very tiny, teeny tiny, that is only just intersecting the convergence point by 1 foot. And it can block out an entire boat. You know, this is just a large-scale demonstration of my kids' blocks and a car and a truck, but this is real world with real-world atmospheric conditions, and this illustrates essentially Sly's point. So long as you have a direct line of sight, 90 degrees, you can see, well, as long as the atmosphere will allow it. And in this case, the atmosphere is allowing good, clear line of sight at 1 feet elevation. The only problem is, if you had a wave now that was as high as that 1 foot above the convergence point, that wave would block the entire boat. Now, according to the side elevation model, that's impossible because it doesn't include perspective. But like you can see, 1 foot swell would block out a 70-foot boat, or a 100-foot boat if you want to count it to the top. So it's perspective, simple perspective rules. There's no getting around this for the Globers. They are screwed.
Perspective and compression. I would like some of the the flat Earth researchers that are in the chat right now to perhaps look into the findings that we've done the last couple of days. It's clearly evident on this boat here, because even you said it, Nathan, that you can actually see the orange line. Very clear again.
Yeah, I couldn't as much yesterday, but I'm colourblind, so I'm not very good with that sort of thing. But on this, it was like, yeah, I can see it today. There it is, and this is again from a foot.
This is from 1 foot, yeah, and this is the same location as the observation that we were working through yesterday. The same viewer height. So the fact that we're seeing down to the base of it again, when essentially the curve calcs, if we believe in the curve calcs, would say that you shouldn't even be able to read the wording on the Stena line.
Right, but the point is, in absolute sizes, you know, you only get a couple of feet blocked because they say in the absolute terms, if you draw a straight line, you've got 30 feet, 100 feet, 200 feet missing. Well, when you look at it like we're looking at it now, if you can just keep playing what you're playing, Ranty, over and over again, it's great. You can see that 1 foot in the near foreground can block a 100-foot boat. Simple, right? Now imagine that that was a 70-foot bulge, which absolutely is there in the bullshit bull model. Well, a 70-foot bulge is going to do more than block out a 100-foot boat. You know, it's going to block out the entire mountain in the backdrop at 1 mile or 2 miles or whatever the horizon's supposed to be at, based on the bull model. You know, you're not going to be losing boats and buildings and lighthouses. We're going to be losing entire geography. We're going to lose countries. You know, that's what it would be. The severity of this just with the bulge. We're not even on to the drop yet. That's step 4. You know, we're going to have ballers undoubtedly come in and say, bulge? Nah, we're looking down. There's no bulge. Like they don't understand their own model, and we'll have to bitch slap them and point out how their model actually works. But for the time being, we've got to get some concessions that there's a bulge that doesn't exist, that we do not see, and absolutely would be blocking our view of enormous things based on the fact that perspective rules and a huge bulge in the way of your vision is going to block things in a big way. Anyway,
Nathan,
thank you, Ranty. That was superb.
Nathan, would you respond to Flat Earth Math's most recent comment in chat?
Wait. I think I just heard the calculator drop. Count drop.
I can't see it. It's obviously already been and gone, I'm afraid.
No, it's only about 8 up.
I'm doing something else right this second.
All right.
Let me just do that.
I'll read what he says. He says, Nathan, this is why no globe Earth followers recommend photography so close to the water. Yeah, how many people have recommended that we go back to the beach and get observations?
I think plenty of people have recommended that we get as low as possible, Charles. And at the time, I was defiant. I was saying to Anthony, get higher. You know, get a better viewing angle. Nah, I want to go lower. And this was because all of the protagonists were telling him to. So, no, Charles, you might not think that, but you're not omnipotent. You're not everybody. You're not everywhere. You don't know what's going on. It's okay. Your ignorance is fine. There you go. Is that addressing it enough?
In fact, let's invite Charles to join and explain how it is that a splash droplet right in front of the camera lens can block out the whole thing in the background, and then argue that orthography is the way we should view the curve calculator.
Red Pill Philosophy wants a Hangout link. It isn't working for him. So perhaps we should open it up now. I don't think the Hangout link is public.
Hang on. Let me send Red Pillbox a thing on his inbox. If he wants to join, let's not have everybody in just yet.
Yeah, to be fair, I'd rather someone like him join and the trolls can wait for the next show.
Red Pillbox, you've got a link in your messages on YouTube right about now. So if you
Red Pill Philosophy, just to make that correction, not Red Pill Box. There's MG42 Pill Box and there's Red Pill Philosophy.
Sorry. Innocent mistake. Don't shoot.
It's okay. Just wanted to get that in early.
Why is there a guy called Red Pillbox that I've just accidentally slurred him with?
Possibly. I don't know. I'm not paying attention to the chat. Like I say, I'm just doing other things at the minute. But I can pay attention to see if it is Red Pill Philosophy. That's his name. If you've just said Red Pill Box, totally random person, welcome to join anyway.
Well, anyway, he's got a link anyway, and it is the same guy.
Cool. I thought the Hangout link was public, by the way. So there's obviously another issue. So, great.
I don't see how any baller can argue that orthography or side profile is the way to do this now, because I think this Hangout's going to go down as one of the biggest, best Hangouts ever, because we're showing that orthography is not a thing. Perspective is a thing, and you guys are all applying it all wrong, and we're not even looking in the right place. We should be looking at where the horizon is, where the drop is, and that horizon is only 1.2 miles away. And it's supposed to be a wall of water, 180 feet, was it? Or 130 feet, whatever it was. No wall of water. We're
70.
seeing right down to the beach. How can that possibly be if we live on a sphere?
Yeah, it's the height, the relative feet and inches value, again, is kind of irrelevant. When we're saying, look, who cares about the feet and inches value? Because it's meaningless. What you need to know is wall of water close to you. That's the most important bit. The angular size of that bulge, if it was at 1 or 2 miles, you know, yeah, in absolute terms, measured at 70 feet with a tape measure, doesn't matter. It's a wall in the way, and it's close to you. So, you know, you're not seeing over this. It's in the way. You know, we tried to get this through to people while we were doing the Isle of Man, and we were dealing in absolute terms, you know, because we were beating the calculator just by the sheer observation. You know, it was still in excess of what the calculator said. In absolute terms, that's how good that photography really is. I mean, we're going to see the whole bloody mountain of Snaefell disappear when we start applying the perspective-based bulge and how much that would be blocking out at the distances that it is. It is still a wall of water. All those points are still valid that we said on the debate when we were talking about the Isle of Man. We're still yet to get any concessions from any of these assholes regarding their completely fallacious, incorrect assertions that they've made based on these calculations, and we have seen plenty. Let's be honest. You know,
well, every time there's been evidence produced, right? They always apply that curve calc, and the way they do it, as I said, it's the way they apply the hidden value. They're applying the hidden value orthographically, and it should be done perspectively, reduced, not orthographically absolute. It should be perspectively reduced.
I've restarted a few things. I mean, I hope that link works, because I just can't be dealing with yet another technical issue. But I thought it was public for the whole time. I've repasted it in. I don't know what else to do. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. We've still got a reasonably big panel just without the public link if it's not working. But there you go.
Red Pill's saying that the private link doesn't work either. Well, I copied it and pasted it from the link that I'm in, so that should work.
Weird.
Let me go.
I have had a major technical issue in the last hour or two, so hence the show's running extremely late. I just could not get the Hangout to actually play, and OBS wouldn't connect to it, and it said it was streaming and it wasn't, and so on and so forth. So it's not surprising, but I'm on it. But yeah.
I think, Nathan, we're going to have to keep ramming this point until we get concessions, because until we get concessions, I don't think we should move further, because ultimately we've got the hidden to go to next. But if we go to the hidden next without dealing with this bulge and getting concessions before we get to this hidden, then we're letting the bulge bit go, and we need to ram that point home. We don't want to let that go. So we need to see some.
Let's
Hi,
folks.
Hello. Good to have you.
The link works again.
Did you come in via the via Skype?
Public link on
perfect.
YouTube.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you.
Well, let's not forget that there is atmospherics at play, and we're only just starting to test what's actually happening. These boat observations are great for seeing that top parts of the boat can stay absolutely proportionally the same, lower parts get compressed. There has to be a value that we can attribute to these at some point with the calculations. We should be able to work this out. But I've got a feeling that this is what's making us lose stuff from the bottom up, this compression.
Sure, when
different
combined
effects.
with
There's
a
looming and
2
there
foot
is
wave or
compression.
something of that nature, just intersecting the midpoint of convergence. As soon as you've got that, you've got bottom-up obstruction. Simple.
I think Flat Earth Math conceded that point yesterday with the wind turbines, and if we applied the same effect on the bolts to the wind turbines, that's exactly what you would happen. The wind turbine would basically get lower and lower and lower until the blade would be touching the water.
Indeedy. So yeah, we've got a massive bulge in the way.
So
it's just
how are
never
we best
seen.
going to deal with this? Because, like I say, we should labour the point and labour it and labour it and labour it until somebody starts conceding, because there is no bulge. Where is the bulge?
Yeah, but
There's
I don't.
already been some concessions in that part.
Hey, Jose.
And
Hey,
then
Yo.
Jose.
Link works.
Good to have you.
Cool.
there's already been a couple of concessions, and then they just walk away from it. Like Flat Earth Math, he basically conceded there. Yeah, it's not there. You can't see it.
Yeah, he did, but he did it in such a way was like,
That he walked away again from it.
yeah, he just walked away from it. You're
Yeah.
right.
That's what they do all the time. First, they get to the point from, yeah, you're right, but it has to be a ball, so you're not right. It's doublethink. They can't let it go.
Yeah, it's there, but it's not there. Yeah, it must be there, but you just can't see it. It's all doublespeak.
Yep.
Hey, Chris, how you doing?
Yeah.
Can you hear us?
I think I made it in finally.
Yeah, just good to have you.
This is where we need that guy from this morning. What was his name? The one that was fighting it this morning like a child. I can't remember what his name was.
That could be anyone.
It could be any number of globe heads.
Yeah, it could. I think he was from Australia.
I have no idea.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yeah,
we
we
can
can.
hear you, yeah.
Hey, it's Red Pill. What's up, guys? I made it in.
Hey,
Hey, what's up?
Well, you filled the panel as well, so you won't get troll tool hell, because that's
All right,
10
that's-
people. Great.
That's good.
So, let me
yeah,
just,
I heard you, Anthony. I heard you earlier saying you're some guy in the comments in one of my videos saying I'm lying or whatever.
yeah, and I thought, I'm going to repeat it and see whether he's got any credibility whatsoever. And I immediately, when I started to do it, I realized that you weren't. You were absolutely right, and he's got it wrong. But that didn't become my problem. My problem became an issue of perspective, because it dawned on me that what you were doing your experiment on was on a horizontal and parallel plane with no vanishing point. And it dawned on me immediately that we have a vanishing point. And it's like, so if I tilt my camera down from horizontal to the vanishing point, which would be the edge of the table, that would be then perspective. But you didn't do that in your observation. And I thought, should it even be done? Or should I just do it anyway? Because if I did it and it was wrong, then I'll get called out for being like a liar or dishonest. But the way I see it, the way you did it was you were doing horizontal lines that didn't converge at a point, right?
Well, I mean, doesn't like, for example, the little bottle with the ruler that I had, in order for that to, quote, hit a vanishing point, it would have to be really, 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 really far away to be in the convergence all the way in the far distance, right?
not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
No, there's a very important factor, and that is the observer height. Because the lower the observer height, the closer by the convergent point at the bottom, where basically the slant starts. This is a rule. Closer the observation points get to the actual the physical surface, the closer by the apparent slant starts. And you can even demonstrate this in table demonstrations. If you keep the camera high up enough, then the convergence point will never become close enough, and you won't see things disappear.
So I guess my question is, how does that like invalidate or bring into question what I did? Because I mean, really what I was trying to do was I just wanted to see if, and I guess this might be what the perspective thing is you guys are talking about, but I just wanted to see if a direct line of sight which that is essentially what the curvature calculators are doing, right? It's just drawing a straight line of sight from observer to the target, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So my question was simply, if I draw the line, a straight line of sight from the camera's eye level to the target, what would the curve calculator say? And so that was where I put it on the little ruler on the bottle, the straight line. And then it was just compare that to what the camera could see, because the camera obviously is already taking into account the laws of perspective, right? Like that's what cameras do, right?
Yeah, they see things in perspective.
I mean, to
Right.
answer
So
your
that was my idea. I wanted to see, because my whole question was, does the curvature calculator have to take into account perspective? That's what you guys have been hammering for like the past month, and that's been basically a big part of the debate is, does perspective even make a difference? So that was the idea was, well, my thought was, if perspective doesn't matter, then what the camera sees as the cutoff point on the bottle should be the same as what a string pulled out as a straight line of sight. It should land pretty much on the same point. And it didn't. It was off by like an inch and a half, I think.
Yeah, and I agree.
So to me, so I guess that's my question. If that sounds so far, what exactly is the issue with the whole perspective thing you were talking about?
There isn't one. Nothing's invalidated what you did. It's horse shit. Sorry.
Right.
What it's done is bolstered what you did, not invalidated what you did.
Okay. Because I guess my question is, you guys are saying that I may have not taken into account perspective. So I guess I just want to figure out, like, what exactly do you mean?
I can have a bash at that. So if you imagine you're stood on top of a row of telegraph poles, you're literally sat, your camera's sat on the top of the post, and for the sake of this example, they're all identical height, like mathematically perfect, going off into the distance. Now, if you just sat your camera, assuming that it's 90 degrees to them, you would see them falling away. They'd drop to your observer position. So this was sort of highlighted by Jaron. He pointed out that in order to align this, and this also sits in line with the Bedford level experiment or explanation, you can tie it into that, you would need to tilt your camera down. Sound familiar? To bring the camera's line in line with the falling away of perspective. So if you keep your camera perfectly 90 degrees, and Sly demonstrated this, although he made a slight error, and I'm prepared to give him the benefit of the doubt in that regard, if you're at 90 degrees, you can slide the rear target indefinitely, and it'll only be obscured by what it was obscured from originally. Whereas if you're trying to keep your camera in line with perspective, i.e. how much it falls away, and keep a straight line that way, you would physically have to angle your camera down.
Right. Got it.
Just to answer your question, I wasn't. It was me that made the perspective point, saying that you may not have considered perspective, but it wasn't done as a criticism. It was done as I'm repeating your observation, and I've realised that what you did was A, correct, and B, not wrong. So therefore, it cannot be a lie. It was factually correct.
Same thing.
But
No, yeah, I got that. Yeah.
But what I realised when I was setting it up was that to get these things horizontal, getting a perfectly horizontal thing in real world, when we're observing something in the distance far away that's tall, it's always getting to a point of convergence where everything meets at a point, and that's called the horizon. So it's like, well, how do I replicate that on a table that doesn't meet over a distance? It remains parallel. So that for me was my initial thought. I thought, right, do I need to account for this, or do I not? And
I guess what I'm thinking is that maybe it is converging, even over a short table. Maybe there is some of that convergence. It's just obviously minimal amount. But what I'm thinking is that to the scale of my experiment, which was just a 76-inch little distance, what I'm thinking is that to that small scale, maybe the convergence perspective effect was at work. It's just so minuscule that you don't really notice it because it's such a small scale, but it's still at effect. Sure. As opposed to looking out many miles over an ocean, and then you kind of see it's you can probably tell it more. I don't know. I'm just throwing ideas out.
Well, when I was having the back and forth with the guy that was questioning whether you lied, right?
Yeah.
Firstly, it has to be false. Whatever it was that he's got issue with has to be false, but it also has to be dishonest. Now, when I replicated what you did, I was clear with what I wanted him to explain was the falsehood. And he got to a point in a time stamp in your video, and he said, right, he's clearly got the camera pointing up. because the line that you've got on screen is on a diagonal. So I copied exactly the way you set it up, and I got it exactly at the beginning part. I got exactly at the same point, the way that you set it up. And immediately I realized that what you were showing on screen was correct.
But wait a minute, one sec. Sorry, one sec, just to clarify. Did he say that my camera was pointed up?
He said that your camera level was below the height of the obstruction.
Yes, that's true. Yes, that's absolutely true. And that's why I left a little disclaimer note on the video itself, saying people can debate in the comment section whether the obstruction should be at eye level, below, or above. And that I'm still not sure on that. And I think we all have to figure out how exactly on a sphere Earth where your eye would be looking. Are you looking up, or is the bulge above you, below you? Is that at eye level? I'm not clear on that.
Can I field that?
But,
Can I field that just before we round out for a break, because we're going to have a short break. So the bulge is absolutely unequivocally a wall between you and the target based on the heliocentric sphere Earth model. When you beg the question of R and exclude perspective in their calculations, you have a wall between you and the target. It is a physical obstruction. That is how you have a hidden value. Now, how much it hides is dependent on perspective. Therefore, a bulge in the near foreground measuring 70 foot will cause a huge amount of obstruction to the things in the background if you deal in perspective terms and calculate angular sizes of things. If you deal in absolute terms, then you can take the overall relative feet and inches value for that line that they draw when they ignore the angular size and the perspective issue with the wall, the physical obstruction. You wouldn't have a hidden value if it wasn't hiding things. And by hiding things, they mean obscuring your vision. And in terms of its perspective value, it has a considerably larger angular size in the near foreground, regardless of its feet and inches value. It's a wall of water in your way. But with that, I will say, first and foremost, a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of the debating panel for making this debate possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of the live audience for tuning in and hopefully for sharing this debate. If you hated the show, then you know exactly what to do. But if you liked the show, maybe consider sharing it with a friend or subscribing if you have not done so already. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!